There's a reason some men rise while others fade into obscurity. It's not because of talent. There are millions of talented men buried in graves, forgotten. It's not because of luck. Fortune favors the prepared, but it also abandons the careless. The difference between the man who ascends and the man who collapses is what they choose to avoid. See, wisdom isn't just built by what you learn. It's forged by what you refuse to accept in your behavior, in your relationships, and in your environment. A wise man is defined not just by what he pursues, but by what he protects himself from, because not every mistake is recoverable. Some mistakes don't just cost you time, they cost you your soul. They strip away your dignity, silence your voice, and stain your name in ways you can't undo. They destroy reputations, dissolve families, and bury legacies. And by the time you realize the damage, it's already too late. That's why a wise man moves differently. He doesn't just fight for success, he fortifies against destruction. If you want to be the kind of man that others respect, a man whose name is spoken with reverence, a man whose presence commands attention even when he says nothing, then you must master a hidden skill, the art of avoidance. Yes, avoidance, not cowardice, not fear, wisdom, because there are forces in this world that don't need your permission to destroy you. All they need is your silence. All they need is one open door. And once they're in, they don't leave. See, destruction doesn't always knock loudly. It sneaks in through comfort. It whispers through bad company. It hides behind small compromises. And the man who lets it stay, even for a moment, is the man who will wonder one day where his peace went, where his power went, where he went. There are 5 poisons that quietly destroy men from the inside out. They don't arrive like storms. They don't announce themselves. They come disguised, casual, familiar, innocent. But once you welcome them, they rot your character. They paralyze your purpose. They erase everything you worked to build. So before we dive in, if you're serious about becoming the man you were meant to be, a man of strength, clarity, and conviction, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more powerful guidance to sharpen your edge. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What's one toxic mindset, habit, or relationship you had to cut off in order to grow? Drop it below and inspire another man to do the same. Now let's begin. Let's talk about the 5 destructive things a wise man must avoid at all costs, because sometimes the greatest power is in knowing when to say no. 1. The poison of weak company. You can tell a man's direction not by what he says he wants, but by the people he chooses to keep close. His circle is a mirror. His friends are a forecast. A man's future is shaped, slowly, silently, by the conversations he tolerates, the behaviors he excuses, and the people he refuses to walk away from. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But here's the part most men miss. Your thoughts don't come from nowhere. They are shaped, colored, conditioned by your environment, by the men you break bread with, by the voices you allow in your ear when life gets hard. What Marcus didn't say outright, but lived by example, was this: your soul also becomes dyed with the company you keep. Look around you. Really look. Are the men in your life sharpening you or softening you? Do they challenge you to rise, to become more disciplined, more honorable, more intentional? Or are they subtly convincing you that mediocrity is acceptable? Are they reminding you of your standards, or lowering them until you forget you ever had any? A wise man avoids weak company like poison, because that's exactly what it is. Not loud poison, not obvious poison, silent poison. Weak men don't help you grow. They make you forget growth is even necessary. They normalize laziness. They glorify comfort. They joke about failure and treat discipline like it's a disease. You've seen it before. Maybe you're living it now. You tell your so-called friends you're trying to wake up earlier, and they laugh. You say you want to train harder, and they mock it. You say you're focused on your mission, and they call you obsessed, not because they don't understand, but because your desire to elevate threatens their desire to stay the same. Your fire reminds them of their coldness, your hunger exposes their apathy, Your commitment puts their excuses under a spotlight, and instead of rising with you, they'd rather pull you back down, quietly, casually, day by day. And here's a truth that cuts deep. The people closest to you are often the ones most committed to your failure. Why? Because your success forces them to confront their own cowardice, and they'd rather lose you than face the truth about themselves. History proves this over and over again. Look at Julius Caesar, one of the most powerful leaders Rome ever produced. He expanded the empire, rewrote politics, and became a symbol of power and ambition. But he wasn't destroyed by enemies. He wasn't taken down by a foreign threat. He was betrayed by his own men, his friends, men he dined with, men he strategized with, men he trusted with his life. Et tu, brute. That wasn't just a line in a play. It was a warning to every man with ambition. Watch your circle, because not all loyalty is real, and not all friendship is friendship. Some men only walk beside you because it's comfortable, because you haven't risen high enough yet to make them uncomfortable. But the moment you start to separate yourself, the moment you begin to walk like a man on a mission, they'll feel it and they'll resist it. So if you're serious about becoming unforgettable, if you want to be a man that doesn't just survive, but leads, then you need to ask a brutal question. Who in my life is quietly making me weaker? Not with insults, not with sabotage, but with distraction, with mockery, with complacency disguised as love. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: no matter how strong you are, if you surround yourself with men who lack discipline, who lack fire, who lack a moral code, they will erode your greatness inch by inch until there's nothing left but potential you never used. You'll wake up one day realizing the life you could have had was buried by the company you chose to keep. So choose carefully. It is better, far better, to walk alone in silence than to run with fools making noise, because while they're busy joking about failure, you'll be building a legacy in silence. And in the end, that silence will speak louder than all their words ever could. Drop a comment. Who did you walk away from to grow stronger? 2. The destruction of comfort. There is no faster way to kill the hunger of a man than to make him comfortable. Not weak, not lazy, comfortable. It doesn't show up like a collapse, it shows up like success. It starts small, you earn a little, you relax a little, you sleep in once, skip a workout, you stop chasing the edge, and before you know it, you're living a life that feels good enough but will never make you great. A wise man understands something most men ignore until it's too late. Comfort is a trap. It's disguised as peace, but it's actually the beginning of decay. Because comfort never arrives alone. It brings with it a quiet kind of death. The death of hunger, the death of ambition, the death of discipline. It softens your edge, dims your fire, and whispers in your ear that you've earned the right to coast. But the moment you stop pushing, you start slipping. History makes this clear. The greatest empires weren't conquered from the outside, they rotted from within. Rome didn't fall in a single day. It wasn't destroyed by barbarians overnight. No, it collapsed slowly. Why? Because its citizens traded hard work for luxury, discipline for indulgence, strength for softness. They forgot what built the empire, and so the empire fell. And the same pattern plays out in the life of every man who forgets what made him sharp in the first place. He used to wake up hungry. He used to train hard. He used to say no to comfort and yes to purpose. But now, he chooses the easy way, the convenient path, the soft answer, and the worst part, he doesn't even notice it happening until it's too late. The man who once led himself with power becomes a man who drifts, aimless, tired, and wondering where the fire went. That's how comfort destroys kings. Take Alexander the Great, a warrior, a strategist, a man who conquered the known world before the age of 33, fueled by fire, driven by discipline, relentless in battle. But what happened when the fighting stopped? Surrounded by luxury, flattery, and indulgence, Alexander began to unravel. He grew restless, reckless, consumed by his own excess. Eventually, he drank himself into an early grave, brought down not by an army but by his inability to manage comfort. Because the fire that built your empire must be fed daily, and comfort is the water that puts it out. Wise men do not chase comfort. They train through it, they wake up before it, and they fight it every single day. They don't wait for life to test them, they test themselves. They do hard things on purpose, they suffer on purpose, because they know the truth. Discomfort is where growth lives. So if you want to become unforgettable, if you want to become the kind of man who builds something powerful and keeps it, you must stop worshipping ease. You must choose the harder road, even when the easy one is wide open. There will always be a voice in your head. It will whisper, "It's okay to slow down. You've done enough. You deserve a break." That voice isn't your friend. That voice is the enemy. It's the voice of decay. It's the same voice that's destroyed men greater than you, and it doesn't stop whispering just because you're successful. Because here's the brutal truth. Most men don't die from hardship. They die from softness. They rot from the inside out because they made peace with being comfortable. So ask yourself, are you sharpening your edge daily, or are you slowly surrendering it, one soft decision at a time? Because the world will not hand you greatness, it will hand you comfort, and comfort will hand you nothing but regret. Drop a comment. What's one comfort you had to give up to get stronger? 3. The weight of ego, the most dangerous enemy a man will ever face, is not out there. It's not another man, not the system, not the competition. It's the one looking back at him in the mirror. Not because of his weakness, but because of his pride. Because weakness can be fixed, but pride hides the cracks. It pretends you're solid, even as you're breaking inside. Ego is a liar. It doesn't just make you loud, it makes you blind. Blind to correction, blind to wisdom, blind to the fact that no matter how far you've come, you can still fall. A wise man understands this. The higher you rise, the more dangerous ego becomes. When you're broke, nobody flatters you. When you're unknown, no one cares if you fail. But the moment you win, even a little, the whispers begin. You're special. You don't need advice. You've already made it. You're better than them. That's how ego works. It feeds off approval. It thrives on compliments. And if you're not careful, it builds a throne in your mind and you start worshipping yourself. And once that happens, you stop growing, you stop listening, you stop learning, and the worst part is you don't even realize it until the fall comes. History is littered with the wreckage of men who had everything and lost it to ego. Take Napoleon Bonaparte, a brilliant military mind, a man who reshaped Europe. He rose from nothing to become Emperor of France, but that wasn't enough. He wanted more power, more territory, more glory. He believed he was untouchable. He silenced advisors, ignored warnings. He led his army into Russia in the dead of winter, not because he lacked intelligence, but because his ego drowned out reality. And in the end, that decision shattered him. The cold didn't kill Napoleon, his pride did. It wasn't a failure of strategy, it was a failure of humility. And that is what separates wise men from arrogant men. A wise man doesn't need to be the loudest in the room. He doesn't need validation. He doesn't need applause, because he's not focused on looking great. He's focused on becoming great. He knows something most men don't. The smarter you are, the more you need correction. The stronger you get, the more you need humility. And the more you achieve, the more important it is to remember where you started. Ego says, you've arrived. Wisdom says, you're still learning. And that's the key. A wise man invites challenge. He seeks out people who sharpen him, not flatter him. He asks hard questions. He listens before he speaks. And when he speaks, he adds value, not noise. He doesn't chase praise, he chases mastery. So you want to be unforgettable? Then be the man who doesn't need validation, because he knows who he is. Be the man who can say, I was wrong, because he values growth over pride. Be the man who leads with silence, listens with purpose, and only speaks when his words carry weight. Because here's the truth. Ego shouts, wisdom whispers. One fades, the other remains. And the loudest man in the room? He's usually the weakest, but the one who listens, the one who learns, the one who adapts. He becomes unstoppable. Drop a comment. What has your ego cost you, and what did you learn from it? 4. The addiction to approval. If there's one silent disease that's killing men in the modern world, it's this. the need to be liked, the addiction to approval, the constant thirst for validation, the obsession with being accepted, praised, understood. But here's the bitter truth. A man addicted to approval is a man in chains. He doesn't live, he performs, he doesn't lead, he follows, he doesn't make decisions with clarity, he makes them out of fear. And fear will always make you weak. You can be strong. You can be intelligent. You can be talented beyond belief. But if you're constantly asking yourself, will they like me? You'll never be free. You'll say yes when you should say no. You'll stay silent when you should speak. You'll shrink when you should rise. And over time, you'll become a version of yourself shaped by everyone else's expectations but never your own truth. A wise man knows this. You cannot be a lion and crave the approval of sheep. Let me tell you something that'll offend weak minds but awaken the strong. Not everyone is supposed to understand you. Not everyone is supposed to like you. And if they all do, you're probably playing it too safe to ever become great. You were not born to fit in. You were born to stand up, to stand out, and to stand firm, even if that means standing alone. Look at the men who made history. Socrates, Martin Luther, Malcolm X, Marcus Aurelius, Muhammad Ali. These weren't men who bowed for applause. They were unapologetically themselves, even when it made the world uncomfortable. Ali didn't just fight in the ring, he fought the world when he refused to go to war because he stood on principle, not popularity. Socrates was sentenced to death by his own city because he challenged the minds of the people. Marcus Aurelius ruled with quiet strength, never craving the spotlight, journaling in silence while leading an empire. These were not men moved by applause, they were moved by conviction, and that's the difference. Weak men chase attention. Strong men chase purpose. You want to be wise? Then stop asking for permission to be powerful. Stop diluting your truth just to fit in rooms you were meant to rebuild. Stop shrinking yourself to make insecure people comfortable, because if you continue to chase their approval, you'll forever be running from your own power. And here's the ultimate irony. The moment you stop needing approval, the world starts respecting you more. Because nothing is more magnetic than a man who moves in silence. A man who doesn't care if he's liked, but refuses to be disrespected. A man who doesn't beg for followers, but naturally becomes a leader. You want to be unforgettable? Then let go of the need to be liked and focus on being respected. Because when the applause fades, when the crowd goes quiet, when the world stops clapping, who are you then? The answer to that question. That's who you were always meant to become. The 5 poisons that destroy a wise man. You now know the 5 poisons that destroy wise men. Weak company, the comfort trap, the weight of ego, the addiction to approval, and all the quiet, subtle lies we tell ourselves to avoid the hard path. But if you've made it this far, you're not here to live like every other man. You're here to rise, to lead, to stand for something real, to walk the path of silent mastery, deep purpose, and unshakable discipline. You weren't born to be average, you were born to be remembered. So go build the life they'll talk about long after you're gone. And if you found value in this message, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support allows me to continue creating content that challenges common misconceptions and brings you insights that others often overlook. Until next time, move in silence, lead with purpose, and never, ever settle.